Welcome to Real Estate Real World, where we talk to the movers, shakers, and leaders that are getting it done right now in the real estate industry and beyond. I'm your host, Marguerite Crespillo, and I started this podcast simply dedicated to calling people about what's really happening in this crazy roller coaster ride of real estate. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and stay up to date on the newest stuff by adding yourself to the list at www.realestaterealworld.com. Now, let's dive into the world of real estate. Hello and happy Valentine's Day. I know you won't be seeing this actually on Valentine's Day because we're recording it, but for all of you out there, share and spread the love and enjoy the day with the people that you care about. I am Marguerite Crespillo with Real Estate Real World, and we're excited today to have a very special guest. I'm always fascinated on how I randomly meet people, number one, and then how we have so many connections, which is kind of crazy. We were talking a little bit beforehand today about some people that we have in common. So please, everybody, I have Andrew. All right, now I'm going to mess up your last name. Fogliato. Andrew, and you got to be Italian. I'm half Italian, but Andrew Fogliato, he's the owner of Real Estate Magazine and Just Sell Homes, and has worked as a realtor trainer and prop tech consultant too. He likes to geek out on real estate, building businesses, and writing biographies in the third person for other people to read out loud before he comes out. He always thinks they're too long, no matter how short he writes them. In his spare time, he has 3 kids with his super amazing, fabulous wife, who definitely approved this intro, loves basketball and mountain biking. Please, everybody, welcome Andrew.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, how do you say your last name? Did I screw it up?
Fogliato. So the G is silent.
Oh, Fogliato. Okay.
Yeah.
So my
everywhere I go, I just used to the G now as like a thing.
My maiden name, my name, first of all, my husband's Spanish, so my whole name is 19 letters, so people always screw it up. But my maiden name was Scuncio. And growing up as a kid, we always pronounced it Scuncio because I didn't grow up with my dad until I went to Italy, and they're like, you're not even saying your name right.
Yeah, that actually happens a lot. Like I did a trip when I was young to Italy, and like it was the first time in my life I could walk in somewhere. Like I remember I walked into the first hostel, and they're like, name? I was like, Andrew Fogliato, and didn't ask how to spell it. They just wrote it perfectly. And I was like, oh, it happens. Yeah, like you start to notice that a lot because like people Americanize, Canadianize their names when they come over. But like Italians are hard rules on the, It's not like English where there's like 8 different ways to pronounce the same word.
Exactly.
It's like a hard rule. And so it's like other people talk to me and I'll be like, that's not how you say your name.
You know, the funny thing is growing up. So I mentioned I didn't grow up with my dad. He passed away when I was young, but my dad was the Italian side. My mom was a mutt, right? English, Swiss, German, something. Anyway, my mom and I would get in arguments all the time. She goes, you're yelling at me. I'm like, I'm not yelling. Like, we would get in these fights all the time. And I always thought there was something wrong with me until I went to Italy. I'm like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just Italian. It just doesn't mean.
When you start doing this a lot and like,
like everybody there, I was like, oh, they're all like me. I'm just Italian. That's the problem. So, well, nice to have you on the show. I was mentioning that it's so random how sometimes you meet people and how you connect with them. And you and I were in this little group on a Zoom call, and you mentioned you're in real estate. I was like, really? And we started chatting. I'm like, I need to have you on my show. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what you do. I'm really fascinated by what it is you're doing. So let's hear it.
Our main thing to simplify as much as possible is we do digital marketing within the real estate world. Our business, like our main one, which is our agency, is like Facebook ads for realtors type of thing. But like what I'm really kind of passionate about is like content marketing. That side, like I love creating content. I love doing like what makes it work, what doesn't make it work. And kind of that's where I really start to nerd out, is on that side of it. But essentially our main thing is we help real estate agents and brokers kind of grow through the online world. So we're very specific on that side. And that's what I like to talk about is like what works and like the mistakes we see. And like the big one for me is like there's so many people in the industry who like get on podcasts and stages, and it's like you can tell they've never actually done it.
Yeah.
Right? Like this is a big one with like I joke there's a lot of like people who play a realtor on Instagram, and then like what happened is like they got started and like they had maybe 500 followers and just like people from their office, and they started making funny videos that they liked, and then they started like doing more of that, but now they had no clients from it because all their time was like other agents. So then it's like, okay, now you have to sell a course on social or get a downline, but like I have to pretend to be an agent while I do it. And
It's so fascinating that you say that because, as we mentioned a little bit before the show, I've been 31 years in real estate.
yeah,
So when I got into real estate, we didn't have computers.
yeah,
We didn't have email. We didn't have internet. We had old MLS books,
yeah, hot
I'm
sheets.
really dating myself now, but so the
Yeah,
whole social media thing has been a big adjustment and
yeah,
challenge. And even for me, like my team all the time is like, get us more video, get us more video. I'm like, I'm out selling houses. Like, do you want video? You
yeah,
want, like, I think I got to pay the bills. I can't be on,
yeah.
on doing video all day long. And then when I do video, it's my biggest challenge. I know I'm not the only one.
So it's a
And
little bit of work. Like there's some really easy ways to get comfortable. Like two parts kind of get comfortable. One is like most people are overcomplicating their videos and doing like super polished stuff. Like if you look at my Instagram feed, I literally just grab my phone each morning, point it at me, and I essentially like answer a question. Maybe the way I'm framing it, it doesn't seem like I'm answering a question, but it's like I get a lot of questions about marketing. So I'll just make a point in the video. But like my reels, which get me, they don't like the views aren't huge, like 400, 500, but like I get business from it because it's the right people watching. But we just 6, 7 minutes max for me from idea to film to posted. I've now got it down to about a 7 minute process. So like we just think about it. And the other one that really helped me, because like I used to be terrible on video. Like if you see my videos from when I was a realtor, the one actually a friend of mine who is honest with me, and I appreciate that. He watched one of my original videos, and his response was, "This looks like an ISIS hostage video." So it's a really high quality video because I was just like super awkward on it. And then we're actually learned, and I kind of figured out. And it was the first time was like it put it together for me. It was a little bit. I was actually at an event speaking with Tom Ferry, and we were at the back of the room chatting, and like super. I don't know if you've met him. Super
I
engaging.
just actually saw
Yeah,
him speak last week. I was at his event here in
super
Sacramento
engaging
area
guy to
just
talk
last
to,
week. Yeah.
and very like down to earth when you're chatting with him. And then someone came up from the event because it was a multi-day event. They're like, "Could you shoot a video for us that we can post to like give people FOMO to make sure they come tomorrow?" And so he did. But like as soon as he went on camera, he like to me, having just chatted with him, seemed like he became a completely different person. Like just like put it on. And I
Yeah.
was like, that's so inauthentic. But then
Right.
I saw the video, and he came across as the guy I was talking to.
Oh, funny.
And what I kind of started piecing together over the years, like they say the camera adds 10 pounds, also cuts your personality in half. So, right? Like you
I
have
love that.
a lot of the time when you're trying to do videos, like let's say like right now you shot a video, you're alone in your office
Right.
there's no energy in that room.
Right.
So you're matching on camera the energy of the room you're in. So you kind of have to pick yourself up and like go overboard a little bit
Yeah.
so that you come across as, and that's when you start seeing like you get more engagement on it, and you start doing like more people responding like, oh, that's a real person, not like this. Because most people when they start doing videos seem very wooden, and they're like there's like no personality even though they're super engaging in person. And no, it's because they're just filming in a room quietly somewhere, and they hadn't put that together yet.
That is so, it's so interesting that you say that because I was just talking to somebody yesterday. I'm like, if you take me and put me on a stage, I'm fabulous. I mean, not
Yeah.
that I'm, the best ever, but I'm totally comfortable. I'm in my zone. I could talk till the cows come home. I can engage the audience. I could do all that stuff. But again, put me, just me and my phone. And I'm like,
Yeah, that's what like that first one I mentioned with the ISIS side. There was another one like that that hit it for me, which I was talking to a friend, and I'd uploaded a video the night before, had like good info in it, and he was asking me a question about it, and I just like we were having a beer. It was one of those like between days of a conference beers that night, and he asked me a question about the video I uploaded, and I just chat. We ended up chatting for like 30 minutes, and he goes, "Andrew, I need to stop you for a second." how are you so engaging when we talk about this over a beer, but you're so boring when I watch you on video? So I was like, it's fair. And that's like, you start piecing these pieces together. So like, that's like my one we were mentioning backstage there of like, I had that show called Over a Pint. That was kind of one of the initial things that made it be like, okay, I'm really engaged when we're sitting down having a beer together. All right, I'm
Drink
gonna go
more
have
beer.
beer with people. Yeah, I'm gonna go have beer with people and film it. That's like for a few years, I had a show that we just sat down and drank beer, and it was great.
That's
But
awesome. I
you
love
get
it.
comfortable.
So with that, like with your and I want to clarify because you said agency. I think some people might think it's a real estate agency. It's a
No,
marketing agency,
yes. So
correct?
market agency for primarily realtors. We work with some brokerages and associations, like, but essentially it's the residential real estate industry.
Okay.
We focus our business on.
Okay. And so within that agency, when it comes to marketing, I remember, and we were talking about him earlier, is Dean Jackson, who's one of my
Yeah,
favorite people on the planet. And Dean, I remember him saying he used to do these internet marketing weekends where we would go down to San
yeah,
Diego and we would bring our computers and we would sit there and we would, come up with all these domain names and all these websites. And he said the biggest mistake agents make is they think that they are selling homes. What they really need to focus on is being master marketers
yeah,
and learning to market, because if you learn to market, you'll never struggle for business. You can always get the business in the door somehow if you learn how to market. But if you never learn how to market, you'll always struggle, in my opinion. Do you think that's true?
yeah. Like, I 100%. Like, even when I'm looking at everything an agent does, like, you have to think about it from a marketing lens. Like, even down to the service you're providing your clients when you're out with them,
Yeah.
that is a form of marketing so that they'll refer you later on.
Yeah.
Right. So like every single touch point is about that. Now, how you approach it, like, I think there is any way that someone can build their business through it. Like, there's a million different ways you can build a very successful business. I have a few that I prefer. Like, I hated cold calling, but like, I did it a lot. I door knocked
Right.
a lot. I tried everything, but like, the online worked for me. So like,
Right.
that's where I like to do it. But like, if you don't know how to market, it's it's a grind. Like, you burn out. Like, I know we had one of my mentors when I was first in sales. He was not a marketer. Like, he didn't know anything about it. He was just a cold calling machine, and he got his business up to like number 2 in town and hustled.
Yeah.
But eventually, kind of just started burning out because it was like
Yeah.
so much time and effort. So like, for him to do 50 deals a year, it was a grind, and
Yeah.
it never got better. Whereas like, if you can, I think like when people are starting out, sometimes you have to do that type of grind just to like get those first few deals in as you're
100%.
building up the branding, the marketing, the reputation, so that they start coming to you. And I think that's where it's like, if you don't eventually make that transition, then you're gonna just burn yourself out.
Well, and it's funny because, like I'll always make the comment, a lot of agents get in the business, they piss off their family and friends and they get out,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
they do a couple deals with close family and friends who agree to work with them, but they never learn the basics. They never
yeah,
learn the skills. They never learn the marketing piece, which I agree, I think is probably I think it's the most important thing
yeah. It's
in
funny.
learning how to market yourself.
Yeah. There's a photo. So years ago, like, we obviously, like, for the agency, had like client avatars of different types of realtors for different programs. One of our programs was specifically that of that person who got in the industry and they sold to all their friends and family, but now their database has moved and they can't figure out how to
Yeah,
do that next part of like, okay, how do I get people who don't know me to do business with me
exactly.
now? So we actually had built a program just for them of like, you've done pretty well for 2 years, because that's around where they start to struggle. And then they go from there. Sometimes they get lucky and like, a couple listings rolled over the right way and got some neighbors calling, but like most of them, it's once that database is done, they're done.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's, we had to end up building a program just for that exact scenario because we were getting so many calls about it.
So tell us a little bit about what your programs look like. Like, how does it help the agents to be able to do more business? Because ultimately, that's the goal, right? Like, we want to
Yeah.
be able to sell more houses.
So we kind of had two main ones. So like, the primary bread and butter over the lot, because we've been down with the agency for about 10 years, has been Facebook ads. But as you've been around long enough in the industry to know too, like, if I just start sending you a bunch of Facebook leads, if you don't know how to convert them, if you don't have the systems in place, you're just wasting your money.
All day
Right.
long.
And we actually early on, especially, had a really big problem with churn of agents would come, they'd run ads for because we don't do contracts, we're month to month. And we get people like 2-3 months, they start getting leads in, they might not even call them, or they call them once thinking that that's enough. And like, oh, and we just had this massive turnover of people who couldn't convert leads. So then we created a kind of 8-week intensive program where we actually build out your whole marketing strategy for you, get it up and running, train you how to now continue it, with the idea being that will help over here on the ad side for you to stay as a client, because now you have the systems to work them.
Got
But
it.
then the more we started doing that, that ended up being the bigger part of the business at points, because people wanted that program. So we've kind of been doing a lot on like, all right, let's just train you on how like the full marketing system works. So like over the past few years, and I've rebranded it a few times, different things like that, but like we just created a framework. But like the easiest way to explain it is like I basically can break someone's marketing down with 6 questions. So the first one is just, how do people find out you exist? And then how do you get them to start talking to you? How do you get them in your database? How do you convert them into clients? Once they're in your database, how do you earn their trust, and how do you earn their long-term loyalty? If
I
you
love
get
it.
someone to write those 6 questions, answers to them right away, almost every single time, you can see what the gaps are. Because they'll like, for one of them, they might have like 8 things in it, and then they'll have nothing for one other one, or they'll have like
Yeah,
one thing, or they're like, I don't even know what that means. It's like, if you don't know what that means, then you definitely don't have anything.
for
um,
sure.
so once we go, okay, there's where you have it. Now you can sub in the things that close the gaps there, and that starts giving you that kind of cycle that the more you do it, it starts to grow. But you need to make sure you plug the gaps in it so you're not losing people.
Well, and I find it so interesting because I've said for many times, like, if you run an ad and you get no calls, the problem is the ad, right? If you run
Can
an
be.
ad, you get calls and you don't get any appointments, the problem is you. The
Yeah.
problem
But
is
it
you
could
need to
be a good
figure out.
ad to the wrong audience.
That's true too.
Right, like that's where we try to work with this. Like it was actually come from someone we worked with years ago, and he had a great line, which is, just because an ad didn't work doesn't mean the ad doesn't work. And it's like
Okay, good
sometimes
point. I
it's,
haven't added that part to it.
yeah,
So
sometimes
let's
it's a
talk
couple
more about
words
that.
here. So like, I'll give you an example. We had a client who, he tried one of those campaigns that was like, get a guaranteed cash offer on your home in 24 hours, that type of style of ad. And he wanted to run to a 16 question survey off Facebook. So it was like a Facebook traffic ad to a 16 question survey. And if they answered it within 24 hours, he'd send them an offer of, if someone wanted to buy your house in cash, here's what the offer is. And we probably sent 1,000 people to that survey from Facebook direct. Not a single person filled it out.
Hmm.
So the initial thought was, this doesn't work. But we ended up going back to the drawing board, and we added a step, which is we turned it from a traffic ad to a Facebook lead form. So we got their name, email, phone number, then sent them on the thank you page of the lead form to fill out the survey.
Ah,
And so
okay.
what happened now is, when his ISAs started calling the people, they were calling to walk them through the form.
Got it.
And so like that little adjustment, now they started getting people through. But it was just like 16 questions straight out there, because like a lot of times if you're on Facebook on your phone, you're not in a place to sit and answer
Not going to fill
16
it.
questions about your home. And like some of them you had to actually like stop and think, like, when did we replace the furnace? When did we do
Yeah.
the roof? I got to go look that up. Or like, what is it? What kind of siding's on my house? Is it like, and they may not always know that, and they have to go searching. They're not going to do that. But
Yeah.
if you
100.
pick up the phone, call them, or sometimes he'll set the appointment where it's like, all right, so like tomorrow night you're going to be home. I'll call you then, and we'll walk through the survey together. And then within 24 hours of that, I can get you your offer. And so it's like, we should have back up.
So that's so interesting because, I mean, what it comes back to is tracking, which
Yeah.
agents are not very good at, right? Is
Yeah.
if you're
Quite good.
actually tracking, what, and, split testing and all that kind of goes back
Yeah.
to what is actually which part of the puzzle
Yeah.
is not there, which part of the, railroad tracks is missing, so to speak, that you can now take and tweak that and
Yeah.
figure out how you can make that work, right?
Yeah, we had a team leader who just impressed me the hell out of me one day. Like he came in at a brand new client. He's like, all right, I'm going to give you 4 weeks to see if this works. And I was like, hey, like new lead sources, stuff like that, they take time to know if they're going to work.
Yeah.
Cause and he's like, no, like, and he brought out his numbers and we started looking at them. And he's like, I have it broken down to like for every lead source, I have it figured out that if we don't connect in the first 2 weeks with at least 30% of the leads, it's an unprofitable lead source. And our goal is 50% connection rate with all leads. And they had like the very specific system, but he had it broken down to like, as soon as that connection rate, that number came in, he knew if long term if that'd be profitable or not, because he had
Wow.
tracked every single thing down the line. And so his basically models, when someone was bringing him, he'd try any new lead source. After 2 weeks, if it wasn't 30%, he said, you can make adjustments or you can stop now.
Right.
And it's like, if they continued, he was thrilled. Same guy we did the cash offer idea with. That's why we had to make
Yeah.
an adjustment. 2 weeks in, they weren't getting the traction they needed.
Right.
So it was like he really had those numbers down. Whereas other people, like, they'll be like, oh, how many leads do you get in a month? And they're like, I have no idea. Like, I don't know, like one a day. And I was like, okay, like pull up your CRM. Like, and they're like, oh, I've had like 10 in the last 30 days.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not one a day.
Well, that and then we, I would say probably maybe the number is higher, but 90% of agents are not tracking anything
No. And
in their
so I
business.
always say, like, start it simple. Like in an ideal world, you're tracking every stage like that guy. Like when you're a solo agent, you're focusing on like, just track how many new conversations a day, how many booked appointments, whether it's a listing presentation, buyer presentation, and there's how many signed a deal or signed a
Right.
contract. Like
Right.
if you just start with, this is how many people I talked to in a day and this is how many appointments I booked from it, you can do pretty well just starting there.
Yeah.
And then the other big one with tracking is like making sure you're doing something with the information. Like a lot of people are like, they'll start tracking and they'll be like, oh, the numbers are down this week. Well, hopefully they're better next week. But they're not like actioning them, right? Like it's that you have to add that part of like, okay, why were they down this week? Why were they better this week? What can I do to make it better? And
Yeah.
that's where I'm like, you got to have that part too. And a lot of people think, okay, now I'm tracking because someone said on stage I should start tracking. And that's always a big one. It's like people just like copy what someone did on stage and they're like, all right, so I'm tracking my numbers now. My business should start growing. Like, no, you have to do something with that.
It's funny because you mentioned Tom Ferry, and last week, like I said, I was in his. He had like all day. Well, it's not really free. I guess your
Yeah.
title people, pay for you to be there, but he had his all day free event. And I was sitting there towards the end of the day, and I was wondering. Yeah, I mean, there was probably 1,000 people in the room. It was a big
Yeah.
event, and I was sitting there thinking, I wonder what percent. I mean, he had a bazillion ideas, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he's smart, even though he's never sold real estate.
Yeah.
His dad was Mike Ferry, who was a master cold caller, but it, I would venture to say that more than 90% of the agents in that room will not do one thing. They took all kinds of pictures and made all kinds of notes, and they go back and they don't
I
do a thing
assume
with it.
2 to 5% of an audience will actually implement when you go to an event. So like I prefer if I'm hosting out to do smaller ones where we do the work together, even if it's like, let's get you the like MVP version of what we're doing, just so you start doing it. But
I
like I
love
actually got
that because I feel like that's where people need, like, they don't need any more ideas.
yeah, there's enough.
What
And
they
it's
need
not
is
a
they need action.
complicated business. Like it's hard work in the sense of like you got to get out there and do it. But it's not a hard business
It's
to
not
figure out.
rocket
Like you're
science.
not putting a guy on the moon.
No.
Like that I would have no idea how to do outside of throw a lot of money at someone who does. But
Right.
like real estate is not complicated. Like to
No.
oversimplify, you have to talk to a lot of people and find the ones who are selling.
Yeah.
Because people, but like it's not hard in the sense of like I can't figure out. It's not calculus or anything like that. It's just you got to put in the hard work. Um,
So one of the questions I have, today before we get done here is, if you are a newer agent and you are trying to figure out where to put your time, energy, and resources, obviously, I'm sure their budget is minimal in the beginning when they're first figuring it out. Like, I think about a lot of the training I've been through, and they basically said, okay, there's 3 buckets. There's business connections, there's advertising, and there is your database, right? That's pretty much the 3 main pillars of business. So your database is your database. And I love how agents are always asking like what database you use. It doesn't matter. We all know the famous answer to that question. Just pick one. It could be a Rolodex for goodness sakes.
I just Google
But
Sheets in my calendar when I started.
yeah, cell phones, right? You got it right here. And then there's business connections, more networking, the tip, BNIs, things like that. But the conversion rate on advertising most of the time is the lowest, right? The conversion rate of ads is if you choose the conversion rate from your database, it's usually 3 to 4 to 1. Business connections might be 10 to 15 to 1, but advertising many times can be 100 to 1 or higher, especially internet advertising. Am I correct?
Depends on how you do it, but most, like 99% of the time you're correct. So but there's ways to do your ads to get higher conversion. But to simplify, it's like, let's say here your general public that these people have never heard of you before. These are just people that are out there. This is a signed client. And this is the path from them going from I'm going to move to I've bought a house or sold my house.
Right.
So if you're doing online ads, you're getting them here. And now that you've got their information, you got to bring them this whole path here. If you get a referral, you're getting them here, and you just got to go like that.
Right.
Right. So and then different things are along that way. Like an open house might be here. You just got to take them from here to here. A sign call is here to here. But like a cold Facebook lead, it's all that. But if you say, okay, I know that is what it is. What if I now put out a lot of content and did like retargeting ads that promoted my great content, built that relationship with people online, and now all my ads are really like building my reputation and doing that side and doing this content, they're going to go all the way here before they've reached out.
Okay.
And so that's how you can start getting higher quality leads. But similar like farming a neighborhood, that doesn't happen overnight. Right? You got to take your time and do it. But that's when you start getting people who are like, I've been following you for years. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And you've never heard their name before. You've never done anything. But most people just okay, I'm going to get a lead here. And this is what there's a red flag for us. If someone comes to our agency to run Facebook ads and I ask them what percentage of your business is referral, if that number is over 50%, and they've been in the business 10 plus years, I can almost guarantee they're not going to like working with leads, because they're going to treat it like the referral that comes in. They're going to do their follow-up, which is only designed to go from here to here on the lead that needs it to go from here to here. And so you have to build that out for them through different systems, or that's why we had to build that program to do that. Because it's they've never had they've never had to experience that huge gap. And that referral almost came over that gap for them. So it's figuring that out.
So I've never had it explained that way. And it's funny that you say that, because I'm that agent, right? I've been 31 years in real estate, and the majority of my business has come as a result. I mean, when I first started, I did open houses till the cows came home, right? I did, nonstop open houses. And I figured out, luckily I got involved with Dean and Joe early. Yeah. I mean, I started in real estate in 95, 96. I signed up for Joe Stump's by referral only. So I was in their marketing system early, and I figured out how to do a lot of different types of marketing. But the marketing we did back then is not what works now. I mean, it still works some, but not at the same level. The concept works, right? I did client events, I did, referral marketing, I did lots of that stuff. But what you just said about taking it, I've always done this end of it, that, that little last piece that you said, I've never really done the whole piece that gets them there.
And that's majority, most people have been in the industry for a while. That's the kind of the problem when they start getting leads, is they've never had to do that before. Because even if you're not doing referrals, even if you're all open houses, those people are still pretty close to, they're out there showing that intent.
Right.
Someone who's just oh, that's a pretty house, let me check out and get more information about it. Or it's I want to know my home's worth. Well, maybe their tax bill went up and they're trying to fight it and they need to reassess. That's not someone who's thinking of selling. That's the other big thing, when you probably hear this all the time, oh, online leads are crap, or normally more colorful language than that.
Right.
And what we actually talk about is those are people expecting prospects when they're getting leads. In the B2B world, they refer to them as MQLs and SQLs, which is marketing qualified leads, sales qualified leads. And I think it's a huge disservice in our industry that no one talks about. That is, a marketing qualified lead is just someone who put up their hand saying, I have an interest in the real estate world. but that doesn't mean they're moving. A
Right.
prospect is someone moving.
Right.
And most of the leads you generate are MQLs. Like I wanted to see more photos. I wanted to know the price. Maybe it's my neighbor and I have no intention of moving. I'm just curious. Or maybe it's just like, that's a really nice house. I wonder how much it's worth. Sheer curiosity.
Right.
So those are MQLs, marketing qual. They're not sales. Like a sales qual lead is now I know they're moving and I have to do it. Like this is actually one of my favorite Dean Jackson. You know, Dean Jackson has a way with words where he gets
Oh yeah, he's
super
brilliant.
good. One of my favorite ones because he has like the farm animal ones. He refers to it as candling an egg, which is like when they're looking at like a farmer's looking at eggs to see if it's a viable fetus. They hold it up to a
Right.
candle and like you can see if the fetus is alive still. And he's like,
Yeah.
that's what you should do with think of the eggs as your leads. And every time you get one, you're holding it up to the light to see if there's a prospect in there. And the ones that are, you keep them, the others you discard. But it's that idea
Yeah.
of like you have so he refers like the initial lead follow-up as candling. And I was
That's
like, I
funny.
love his way with words, but that's where most people are struggling. Like when they say online leads are crap, they're expecting prospects, but they're generating leads. If you want to generate prospects, you're not getting that at $5 a lead from a Facebook ad or $2 a
Right.
lead. Like if you want to generate prospects from Facebook ads, you're probably $300 to $500 per prospect.
Yeah.
And that most agents don't have that budget to run a campaign like that
Yeah.
to the point that it is like predictable and tested. Because like you got to get 50 leads in on something to truly understand how well that campaign's working. And if you're trying to generate like ready now clients from a Facebook ad at $300, $400, $500 per, and to get 50 of them, you do the
Yeah.
math, most people aren't going to spend that. So you
Well,
got to
it's
go do it.
interesting too because I remember when, Facebook not first came out, but when it was
Yeah.
newer and we were doing Facebook advertising and you could blow through money quick
Yeah.
and accomplish nothing. And so a lot of people got, including myself, got very discouraged. I'm like, oh, I'm not doing that. I got to figure out something else,
Yeah.
And I just heard a statistic, and maybe this is accurate or not. You might know better than I, that like over 50% of clients now are coming from social media.
Yeah, I bet most of those are still on the organic side. But like you can build a very good business off it. But like, I mean, Facebook ads, especially before housing category was allowed, were
Yeah.
so much fun. But like, I remember one of the first clients I got from Facebook ads was actually, I used to coach kids basketball. That was like before I had kids, just like a hobby of mine.
Right.
But I didn't want to be that annoying person who's like, by the way,
Yeah.
I'm also a realtor.
Right.
So during tournaments and game days, I would target the gym because I could go down to a single building with my ads. I would just target the high school gym that we were doing tournaments in. And I was with Remax at the time. So I just put my face on the big balloon and that was it. That was the whole
Oh
ad,
my
just
God.
that. And then I'd get parents coming up to me being like, during halftime, I was on my phone. I saw you're in real estate. Can I have a chat with you after the game? And the amount of times I started having was like, okay, there's something here. Like we can do so. Like I'd start door knocking and I'd target the neighborhood, being like, I'm gonna be in your neighborhood this week. If you'd like to find out what your home is worth, if you see me at your door, just invite me in and I'll kind of let you know what your home would be worth if you were to sell
Wow.
it. And someone saw that ad after I knocked on their home, messaged me like, hey, you're at my home today, but I didn't want to talk to you because my husband wasn't home. Would you mind coming back tomorrow night when he's here? And that was like my first
Wow.
listing presentation I ever generated myself.
Wow.
And it was just like those little things started putting it together and then started working really well.
It's
So we started
crazy.
having fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny because just this morning I was looking through some old files because I have all the stuff I've done over the
Yeah.
years in Dropbox, and I found Dean's Getting Listings campaign that he
Yeah.
did with what was it? It's so funny because I didn't even know we were going to talk about Dean, and we ended up getting into that. And what did he call it as a Project Cyrus? That he did this whole Project Cyrus.
That rings a bell, but I don't remember what
And
it is now.
yeah, and with the whole thing with free reports and letters and all that kind of stuff that went to the neighborhoods. And it's so funny that I just saw that before we were
Yeah.
talking because we're big fan club here
Yeah.
of Dean.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. He was like early in my career, probably one of the people I learned the most from about marketing.
yeah,
Like
he's
there,
brilliant.
yeah, I ran into him at a mastermind where he was brought in. There's a group of 20 of us mastermind, and he was brought in as a guest speaker. But it
Yeah.
wasn't a real estate mastermind. And he just started using a lot of real estate examples. And I was like, it kind of tweaked. And then he said where he's from, because he used to sell. Many years ago. It was like 40 minutes from my house. So like
Because
it's
he's
the same area.
Canadian. He's from
Yeah.
Canada. Yeah.
Yeah.
He
So he's
lives
just
in
a little
Florida now.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm say 45 minutes north of Toronto. He was like east, or no, a little bit west and a little bit north, but about the same distance that I was that way. So like we were in this, like I've worked in his area, sent referrals there all the time. But yeah, it's funny,
Yeah.
kind of funny when you're at this
He's
random
definitely brilliant.
mastermind, he shows up.
I did a podcast with him probably 8 years ago on his 50-minute focus finder,
Yeah.
how to learn how to focus. I mean, yeah, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. He's awesome. So I always try to learn from him when I can.
for sure. Well, Andrew, this has been an amazing conversation. I feel like we could talk for hours. We're definitely gonna connect somewhere else on this planet somehow, because I'm
Sounds
really
good.
fascinated by all that you're doing. So, if somebody's interested in working with you and your agency, how would they get a hold of you, and what would that look like?
So we have our website, justsellhomes.com. You can go, or if you just go DM me on Instagram, we can chat. So that like is just my full name. No one else, as far as I know in the world, has the same name I do. My name's pretty rare. So if you search me up with Fogliato spelled properly, you will come to me somewhere.
I think I'm the same way. I don't think there's another Marguerite Crespillo
Yeah.
anywhere on this planet. If
Yeah,
there is,
I feel bad for the people with super common names. They're trying to break through. It's like, oh, look, like imagine right now if your like real name was like Taylor Swift trying to rank and someone trying to find you, you'd have no shot.
Well, it's funny because growing up with such a long name, I wanted to give my kids simple names, which in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have done. But so my son, his name is John. I mean, how much, more common can you get? But my son, Jake, my husband is Spanish and he wanted a Spanish name. So his actual name is Jacobo, right?
Yeah.
But everyone always messes that up too. So either way, what I have found in my lifetime is that having a unique name stands out because people have to say it a few times so they remember your
It
name, right?
helps. But it's led me to like accidentally develop tactics that have been really effective over the years. So like one that like I have a Calendly for people to book sales calls, and I would like on stage want people to go to it, but like there's zero chance if I'm just saying go to calendly.com/Andrew Fogliato, someone's spelling that correctly.
Right.
And so I bought bookandrew.ca.
Nice.
And the amount of times like you'll say that, or like I've been on stages and similarly I'd be like, go to, and because at the time when I started, my website was just my name, like Andrew Fogliato. And similarly, no one could spell it. So for presentations, everyone wants a copy of the slides. So I bought downloadtheslides.com. But like you could be in presentations and be like, oh no, like as soon as someone takes out their phone, don't worry, just go to downloadtheslides.com. You can grab a copy of my slides. And those simple domain names that they can spell.
I don't want to spend too much time on this rabbit hole, but what's funny is I mentioned earlier how we would do the internet marketing weekends. And the big thing with Dean back then was the domain name, right? Because nobody's going to go to Marguerite Crespillo, just like you said. I mean, and the odds of them spelling my name right are like slim to none. But so I still have some of these domain names. I think I got Your Home Sold Fast. I got in a bunch of trouble because I did Placer County MLS for the multiple listing service. And they tried to sue me and shut me down because I was using the MLS. I go, you can't, it's also used for soccer. You can't, it's not trademarked.
I didn't know. I was with Remax at the time and sellwithremax.com was available. So I bought it. And my website for like 2 years was just sellwithremax.com. I didn't realize as a Remax agent, you weren't allowed to use Remax in your name. It was a similar thing where they're like, you can't do that. And I'm like, so I owned Sell with Remax for a long time. I was like, this is a great domain. How is no one using this? This is brilliant. There's so many of those little ones, but like domains now, they don't have value from like an SEO standpoint, really.
I know. I have probably still like 30 domain names. Like I have Home Zero Down, Your Home Sold Fast.
I have a bunch. I have guidetomarketing.com, which I like. I don't know what I'm going to do with that one, but I just like it. At one point,
isn't it like being a hoarder? Like you keep all these domain names because you're going to use them someday.
85. Like so before Facebook, like we kind of killed the pixel a little bit. I bought the Pixel Broker, and it was going to be a business where we'd go like out to people with like big traffic on their website and then sell access to the retargeting audience to other people so that they could make money without actually having to do anything. and we were just going to go and like connect all these different websites and resell the traffic. And you could like, and it was like this at the time, I'm like, this is a brilliant idea. And then I was like, I'm building out the site, building out the systems. And like 2 months later, they announced like everywhere that they're killing the pixels.
Oh, how funny. How funny.
Yeah.
Well, it has been such a true pleasure talking to you, Andrew. You're super
too.
sharp cat, and I look forward to following you and seeing what else
This
you
was
got
fun.
going on, and hopefully connect with you at some point here in the
Definitely.
coming soon. Get to an event or something where we're at. I've never been to Canada. It's on my list. I got to get to Canada.
Yeah, well, you just missed the best event we have, which is the Banff Western Connection. So there's like a Fairmont hotel in the heart of Banff, and every 2 years they do a big event there. That one's always worth checking out. I'd put that like the next one will be 2027 because every 2 years, but they had Jay Leno speak at it this year.
Wow.
And actually, just one last little story because it was really cool in the real estate world. So they had a silent auction with the goal of raising like $20,000 for a children's hospital type of charity.
Right.
And I guess they told Jay about it before he went on stage. So he comes out at the end of the gala. So he was like, instead of being like a session speaker, they had him at the closing gala come do like a comedy set at night. Nice. So people had a few drinks in them, they're having a good time. He comes out, does this set, and he goes, by the way, I heard you guys have this silent auction for charity. I'd like to add something to the auction. We'll start an auction, and the MC will do it. 100% of the funds will go, and here's what I'm auctioning off. One person buys it. They can bring 3 people with them. Next time you're in LA, you'll get a tour of my garage because he's famous for his car garage.
Yes, he is.
And so I don't know what the MC was thinking, but like started at like $100. So of course someone puts their hand up right away. Jay makes fun of it. It was like, no, like we're not doing this for $100. Someone goes 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, and then someone jumps it to 10. So I figured this might go 20, 30, 40,000. And Jay stops and he goes, 10. Okay, we're not going to keep this auction going. Anyone else who puts up their hand and says 10 grand, you all get a tour of my garage. And he raised 150.
Oh my goodness.
It's like you went from out of nowhere to 3 minutes, $150,000 for his charity. Like, it was unbelievable. Yeah, it was like you could just, and even just like the marketing inside me is like, that was brilliant the way you stopped it because you knew that would get you so much more.
Brilliant.
And it was funny because I spoke to the guy who put his hand up for the 10. He's like, I was just trying to drive the number up. I wasn't planning on buying it.
What is okay? So this is my ignorant side. What is Banff?
So that's like it's an international park. So it'd be like the most beautiful kind of like if you just Google Banff, BANFF, it'd be kind of like Vail or Aspen type
I got it.
Level of beauty.
Wow.
It's pretty great.
That's amazing. Well, thank you again, Andrew. This has been a truly fabulous conversation. And again, I'm looking forward to getting to know you better in the future. So thank you. Enjoy those kids of yours. How old are your babies?
3, 6, and 8.
Oh, you got all young ones.
Yeah, it's a little busy around. I gotta pick up the youngest from daycare shortly.
My middle son, Jacobo, turns 30 on Sunday. So yeah.
I'm 37.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Thanks for that. I do have a son who is your age. So yeah. Jacob's not my oldest. So he'll be 30. He would have been 37 this year. So yeah.
Well, if you see any conferences in Canada, let me know. I go to quite a few of them.
I would love to. I got to get to Canada. It's on my list. So thank you.
I come to the odd one in the States too. I was supposed to speak at, so are you California?
I'm in Northern California. Yeah.
Okay. So I was supposed to speak at the California Association conference.
That's in LA.
May 2020.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah. So I lost that opportunity.
Well, we need to get you to come speak at an EXP event. I'll have to throw your name in the hat and get you out there to do some marketing.
Happy to.
All right.
Sounds good.
Thank you again, Andrew.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us on Real Estate Real World, where we get to talk to all the cool people, especially some of those Canadians up there. So thank you so much for joining us. Go out and make it an amazing day and shine bright. Thank you for joining us today on Real Estate Real World, where we talk with masters and leaders in the real estate industry and beyond on how we can raise the bar in our industry. Please subscribe over on iTunes, and while you're there, be sure to give us a review. Your reviews encourage us and help others to find our podcast for show notes and hot topics on what's going on right now in our real estate industry. Also, hop on over to www.realestaterealworld.com and add your name to our email to get early advance notice of upcoming podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and go out there and be a part of the elite masterclass and raising the bar on the real estate industry.